Open Space Production presents A Month of Mondays, the monthly wrestling podcast. And here are your hosts, Carl Eggett and Gabe Giannis.
Hello everybody and welcome to A Month of Mondays. This is an exclusive episode brought to you all centered around the world of WOS Wrestling that has just completed its first season on ITV right here in the UK. This will be great for us. It's an exclusive episode with exclusive interviews you can only find together right here on this very show. What have we got for you? Well, we've got a lot of interviews to talk about. We've also got my tag team partner, Mr. Gabe Giannis, right here beside me. He's going to take you through his thoughts on what WOS has brought to the table as well. But thinking back about the history of WOS, I remember WOS Wrestling very young, being on ITV around Saturday lunchtime, tea time, that kind of thing, featuring many great wrestlers and names. None come bigger in the UK than Big Daddy. He was the big man, the biggest face in pro wrestling back when I was a kid, and he was a force of a man. Shirley Crabtree was his real name. There's been many a story and many a myth about Shirley, but one thing I do know is that he gave to his fans. He loved his fans. He went bent over backwards to do anything for his fans, spent a lot of time with them. I remember back when I was a kid as well, I used to get the sort of black and white newspaper posters that used to come in the paper of Shirley, Big Daddy, or the big villain at the time, which was Giant Haystacks. That's two of my biggest memories as a kid from World of Sport Wrestling. And this new generation of WOS that we have exclusively on this month's Month of Mondays podcast is no different. It's larger than life. It's kind of pantomime-esque, proper British lunchtime, good fun, family, clean wrestling that everyone can enjoy. And there's some great matches in there as well. It caters for the kids, it caters for the teenagers and the adults as well. It's great fun. We've got exclusives that are coming up right here on this very podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Mondays Podcast if you don't follow us on there already. You can find the podcast itself on many a platform, including YouTube, and also find the podcast itself on Facebook, facebook.com/MOM Wrestling Pod. And if you do follow the podcast on Facebook or indeed iTunes, go ahead and drop us a 5-star rating and review. Just a few words about what you like or maybe what you dislike about the show. We'd love to know. We'd love to hear your 2 cents and what you think of us. And I've got to tip my hat to Mr. Gabe Giannis. He's right here beside me this month, because if it wasn't for Gabe, there would be no podcast this month. He has gone out of his way to show his love of WOS, because he was the guy that put his hand up and put his name down to interview the wrestlers. And he did that, and with the crazy time difference between the US and UK that me and Gabe have, I believe a 7 hours time difference between the UK and Colorado where Gabe lived. I believe so. So he was up at like 2 or 3 in the morning to do these interviews, and we've got some great ones. We've got exclusively here, right here on this show, we've got WOS interviewee bombshell, Rachel Stringer is exclusively here on WOS podcast. And we've also got WOS ring announcer Phil Seymour, as well as probably the biggest scoop of the podcast of this episode has got to be the new WOS world champion that is Justin Sysum. What a superhero this man is. He's a great, great guy, really lovely guy as well. I'm sure Gabe will tell you more about him than I will. And just a good man. He's got an exclusive comic book that's coming out all about him and his superhero stardom. That is coming soon as well. Justin's a great guy. He's coming up, as well as many more and many exclusives as well. We also have a little chat to the Monster Crater, I believe, which is a Gabe exclusive for us. Gabe has got the Monster Crater right here on Mom Wrestling Pod, A Month of Mondays. It's going to be a great time. Gabe, how's your month been, my man?
Oh, man, Carlo, it has been a crazy busy month. I basically have gotten the chance to go out and do a bunch of things that I've never had the chance to do. I got to go to the 9th annual Slave to the Death match this last month, and I also got to go see WWE live on a Sunday with my youngest daughter, which was a lot of fun. She's a huge Bayley fan, so it was just great to watch her get so excited to see Bayley in the live show. I mean, that was amazing. And then, of course, I went with my wife to see Raw in Denver here in Colorado. Watching her pop for every single act that she loves was awesome. Just a ton of fun. As far as the podcast goes, I have just been busting my butt trying to get these interviews. Like you said, we got Phil Seymour. We have Rachel Stringer. One person that you missed out on saying was SoCal Val. It was kind of a last minute squeeze in that was absolutely amazing to talk to her, and even got a pop from my wife when I mentioned that I was talking to her. And of course, Justin Sysum is going to round out the show. And of course, our little bit of Crater later. It's going to be a lot of fun. So anyway, with that said, let's jump right into the interviews. Let's talk to Phil Seymour about what it's like to be the ring announcer for WOS Wrestling right after a message from our friends over at Heavyweight Chumps.
You don't listen to the Heavyweight Chumps? Well, they're only the greatest podcast that wrestles with pop culture. You don't believe us? Well, listen to some of their fans. And for those of you that don't speak cricket, here's our translator, Mr. Harlan T. Bobo.
It's like cotton candy in my ears right now, man.
The Heavyweight Chumps. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and Stitcher. Every Monday and Thursday, same fat time, same fat channel.
Well, everybody, there are very few positions in a ring that are as iconic as the ring announcer. And so I couldn't be happier to talk to Phil Seymour, ring announcer of WOS Wrestling. Phil, how in the world are you doing today, sir?
I am very good indeed, sir. Yourself?
I'm doing really good, man. Honestly, WOS is quickly becoming one of my favorite wrestling programs. I feel like I can't do enough to express to you how much fun it is and how much I want to kind of push us, forward into the United States.
That's really good to hear. It's hopefully ITV will carry it on and we'll be able to get sort of more broadcast around the world, really, which would be great. It's gone down very, very well here in the UK as the new series, and like I say, hopefully they can broaden that out. I know there's been some interest from the States, so fingers crossed.
Right on. Well, man, first we got to start off with like the most basic of questions. You have this background in boxing and other sports, but how in the world do you end up as the ring announcer for World of Sport Wrestling?
Mine's a funny story. I'm a rugby man, really. I used to play the sport of rugby. I used to coach rugby. And I somehow ended up as a stadium announcer for my local rugby club. I then got taken, I must have done okay, I then got taken by a bigger rugby club, a professional club, to go and stadium announce for them. I've been doing that for 10 years. One day we had a game on TV and the TV producer said, Phil, you've got a good voice, you should do the boxing. So I then decided to have a go at that. So I did boxing ring announcing, which I still do now. I've announced all over the place. I've done Wembley, I've done stadiums. It's been fantastic. And World of Sport Wrestling was something that I watched when I was a kid. I think the same as everyone else in this country did. And I got a phone call from ITV, the people that make WOS, to say, look, we're looking to bring it back. We need a quintessentially British ring announcer. We'd like you to do it. And we did a pilot a couple of years ago now, which was amazing. First time I'd been involved with wrestling at all. And the guys were incredible. The wrestlers are probably the hardest working people you could wish to meet, and so welcoming. And we did the pilot, and then I've been sort of busy since then doing lots of other stuff. And the series came about this year, and I absolutely jumped at the chance. And it was great to meet the wrestlers I'd worked with previously, and then some other new guys as well. And what really made it for me were the fans. The fans the wrestling fans are off the hook. They are different level. It's like they want to be involved and absorb absolutely everything. And we taped the whole series over the course of 3 days, which was pretty intense. You know, it's hard work, but the crowd inside the arena were absolutely immense. They were just electric right the way through from start to finish. And, you know, we were working sort of 12 and a half hour days, but you never once felt tired because the crowd were electric and they picked everything right up. So, yeah, it's been a very funny road, really, and there's twists and turns, but that is how I ended up as WOS ring announcer.
Oh, man, I feel like recording that much that quickly would make me want to take the longest nap of all time. But what I want to know, it was so crazy. What was that experience like? What was it like recording the entire season in like such a compact amount of time?
You know, it was funny. In between the bouts, I was talking to the crowd and explaining to them sort of what was going on, because we were jumping around a little bit at times, and you know, you had to sort of explain what's happened previously, because we were doing 2 shows a day, and each show was being made into 2 episodes. So it was a case of trying to explain to the crowd exactly what was going on, what happened. You know, this has happened, that's happened, and so they understood the storyline at the point that they were at, if that made sense. But it was nuts. I mean, it was mad. I've watched the series on TV, and it looks amazing on TV, but there's a couple of bouts I don't even remember. You know, and I'm thinking, really? I don't remember that one. And there I am in the ring announcing it. And you think, okay, that's fair enough. But that's how mad it was. It was a crazy few days. You know, hats off the wrestlers. I go in there and I talk. They go in there and put their bodies completely on the line. You know, the amount of work they put into that series is absolutely crackers. It's madness, really.
So, I mean, how do you feel about the workers overall? Like, what is it like, you know, spending time with them, doing all that stuff? You know, I mean, what is the experience like?
Hey, like I say, I go in there in a suit and I talk. By the end of the 3 days, I had no voice left. You know, my voice had pretty much completely gone. But I look at what the wrestlers were doing, and, you know, some of those guys, Justin Sysum, great example, involved right the way throughout the whole thing. Grado, you know, obviously using his peak fitness throughout the filmings, and involved in so many bouts throughout it. Martin Kirby, Joe Hendry, you know, they weren't doing just 1 or 2 bouts. These guys were in there all the time and constantly involved. And
what were some of the highlights for you of working on the show and just, you know, spending all that time with those guys and creating this product?
Oh man, the whole series was crazy. Coming from a boxing background and a rugby league background, I'm used to getting in the ring, doing the announcing and going. I'm not used to Kip Sabian pinching my microphone, insulting me. I'm not used to Martin Kirby shoving me into the corner, and you know, that kind of stuff was totally alien to me, which was actually really, really good fun. And the reaction on social media it's been immense, to be honest. It's been so good from the wrestling fans. From a wrestling perspective, I think that final match, I think the series finale between Rampage and Justin Sysum really does take some beating. That was a heck of a match. But then earlier on in the series, in episode 1, we had Will Ospreay against British Bulldog Jr. against Davey Boy Smith. Now, as a pure wrestling bout, the skills involved in that ring were absolutely incredible. They really were. So I think there's been great bouts throughout the whole series. For me, the highlight for me was being more involved, you know, and I think getting involved and how the wrestling fans took to that was phenomenal, really. So, yeah, the whole thing it's put a big smile on my face for 10 weeks.
I mean, obviously, having the microphone stolen, getting shoved, those are all big surprises. But what were some of the other surprises that you encountered while working on WOS Wrestling?
Some of it I had an idea of. others were a surprise. There was one part where I got, I think it was Crater's bout against the three, against Robbie X, Liam Slater, and Gabe, where they were, the bout ended rather oddly, and the producer said, Phil, go in, ask the referee what's going on. And I went in, not realising that they were about to start wrestling again. And clearly I was stood in the wrong place. And all of a sudden, I looked round and there was a wrestler literally flying towards me, having been thrown by Crater. And when you've got one of these big guys flying through the air straight at you, you learn to move pretty quick. So there was, some of it I was more aware of, other bits not so much.
So tell me, how do you feel about going on and being the ring announcer at WOS Wrestling moving forward into a season 2?
Listen, if they announce season 2, I would be sat by my telephone because I wouldn't want to miss it. It's, it's one of the craziest rides that I've been on from a work perspective. And I don't really count it as work because, believe me, it's so much fun. And, I would, if they do a season 2, I very much want to be there on the mic. I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Well, Phil, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate your time. And like I said, there's truly nothing more iconic than the ring announcer at a wrestling program. So thank you so much for doing that and being part of WOS.
Hey, listen, thanks very much for your support as well. I think the support that you guys give us on Twitter, on social media is fantastic. So please keep enjoying it and please keep that up. That's great.
Well, we can't wait to watch the second season of it, and hopefully we see you in the ring saying this match is scheduled for one fall on the second season of WOS. Man, Phil, thanks again for your time. You have a great day.
Well, we have here Gabriel Kidd. He just won that epic ladder battle there, and he was the youngest in the ring. You just defeated 3 guys. But you have your hands on this.
I had my hands on this contract, and that might have been the most important. I got this contract, and I'm ready to show all of you, everyone watching at home, and the executive producer, Stu Bennett, what I'm made of.
You've just seen what Gabriel Kidd is made of. Stu, he has the contract, he has the opportunity. Back to you.
That is what WOS Wrestling is all about. It's about opportunities for young wrestlers, and believe me, he's just won himself a big opportunity right here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. On the line we have Rachel Stringer. You know, this is a great opportunity to ask those kind of questions that you may not get to ask of the kind of behind the scenes people that you see on wrestling promotions. You know, it's not every day that you get to talk to the person that goes face to face with the biggest stars of a promotion week by week. Rachel, how are you doing this morning?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me on. It's great to be on here a month of Mondays and chatting to you as well, Gabe. Really cool. Excited for what you're about to ask me and a bit worried as well. Oh. Gosh, I'm going to give away all my secrets now, aren't I?
Don't worry. There won't be too much delving into the deep, dark recesses of anything.
Good, because I'm sure the guys and the girls won't like me to give away all their secrets.
Right. So what I'm kind of most interested in is how do you end up in that position? Like, you know, what was kind of the trajectory that puts you in that path where you're the person behind the scenes, like before a big match or after a big match, asking the questions of the professionals in the ring?
So as in how I got my job, or?
Yeah, just kind of like what pushed you in that direction, like not just like, oh, you know, somebody asked me to do this, but why would you be even interested in being the behind the scenes like interviewer in a wrestling program?
Well, I mean, why not? You know, in this country, in the UK, obviously 30 years ago, as everyone was saying, we always used to have World of Sport Wrestling on a Saturday afternoon. You know, we all grew up watching it in this country. Our parents did, our grandparents did. And it's kind of like a legacy in this country. And so when the opportunity came about, you had to jump at it. And, you know, me and my brother, my sister, we always used to recreate the wrestling scenes in the lounge, in our living room. We used to get all the cushions off the sofas and the chairs and jump around pretending to be the wrestling heroes that we used to watch back in the day, like the giant haystacks, the big daddies. So when the opportunity came and I knew what they were trying to do, trying to not only bring it back, but bring it back on such a huge scale as we saw, you wanted to be involved with the next generation of wrestlers who are on the British scene, who are not getting the exposure that they should be. And hopefully now everyone's seen how awesome they are, and that hopefully, we might get a series 2, and they're obviously going on tour. When an opportunity like that comes to this country and you get asked to do it, you go 100% yes, when can I start?
So it's interesting to me, being from the United States, like WOS was a whole new product to me. Like, I had never seen any of the characters. I had never seen, I'd seen some of like the British style of wrestling through like Progress and Rev Pro and stuff like that. But I don't have, that kind of legacy memory that you have. For me, it would be, Macho Man and Hulk Hogan and stuff like that. Was there anybody on the season of WOS where you're just like, holy crap, I can't believe I'm talking to this person today?
I think you've got to probably look no further than the Grado. He has been around for years in this country, and especially in Scotland, and he's a big deal, and he is such a character. Not only when he's in character, but in real life as well. He will just walk into a room and everyone looks at him and you can't help but not laugh. That's the maybe not the right thing to say, but just want to go and chat to him and ask him what he's been up to and about his character, because he is the next generation of wrestling. He's just such a great guy. And I guess the same goes to Justin Sysum, actually, obviously the champion of WOS. He is your modern day superhero, and reminded me as soon as I met him of the Thor characters from the Avenger movies. So those two, in terms of the male characters, were always kind of big standout wrestlers that I was a little bit nervous to I guess, interview. And then in terms of the females, I'm going to have to say Viper. And especially when I first met her as well, she's such a presence when you meet her. And I think the first time I met her, she came with an actual snake as well. That was the idea, to come and have a snake as part of her character. I was like, oh my goodness, I actually have to go and speak to this lady. It's going to be quite an experience. But those three, in terms of the British scene, I think I would say I was a little bit maybe nervous to interview. And then obviously that we saw Moose make an appearance on WOS, and he's obviously quite a big deal on the American scene as well. And when everyone was doing his big, moose with the arm movement, I thought, I've got to interview this guy as well. And he obviously came through. And actually, a little story about that. He was wearing his socks and he didn't have his wrestling boots on. And I've got a picture of him, and he looked at it afterwards and he was like, do not, whatever you do, put that picture out of me with my socks on, because I just don't look like, big and strong enough. And I was like, don't worry, I'll crop your feet off. So actually on my Instagram page, there's a picture of Moose and I've made sure I cropped his feet off so you can't see he's wearing his socks.
That's awesome.
And I mean, Davey Boy, obviously British Bulldog's son, is a legend. So they're all legends, but I guess those, I've named 5 now. Davey Boy was also one that you're like, you're British Bulldog's son. Oh, okay, yeah, we all know who he is. So and he's also a giant in real life. So they're all giants compared to me. I'm like 5'2", so it was always quite intimidating when these guys would come bawling in, and I'd be like, hey, I'm gonna speak to you. Oh gosh. But it was so much fun. They were all brilliant and made me feel super comfortable when I was chatting to them. We had a lot of fun.
So when we were approaching people that are working with WOS to do these interviews for our special, one of the people that we approached was Crater, and Crater does no media. What's it like being backstage with like such a gigantic, like not just like human, but like presence? Like he seems almost like a force of nature in the ring. I can't imagine that backstage he's not also just unbelievably intimidating to be around.
Yeah, I guess you're quite right there. I mean, I'm not sure if you haven't seen it, I'll try and send it to you. But one interview we were trying to get with him, I think it was when he was with Robbie X, and Robbie X was trying to take his mask off. There was the unmasking match. And we tried to get a word with him after, or it could have been when he really hurt Gabriel. I can't remember, one of the two. There was so many episodes that we filmed like quite quickly after each other. And he came out, and I said to my producer, I was like, right, I'm going to try and grab a word with Crater. He said, yeah, just stand in the behind the scenes bit and we'll try and grab him. And he just came bowling up to me and just picked me up and put me to the side of him with such ease. I mean, I think I kept describing him as a man mountain, and he absolutely is. Like you say, he doesn't say anything. You can't speak to him. But he's just, a super, super lovely guy who doesn't have many words to say. But when you're trying to work with him, goodness me, he's intimidating. I'll try and send you the clip, and you can see how powerful he is, that he can just lift me up and pop me to the side with absolute ease.
I bet he's a really good cuddler, though.
Not that I got any cuddles.
Right.
Actually, I do have a picture when I'm sitting next to him. Again, I can send you that as well. And it's when you can see how big he is compared to me. Like I said, I'm 161 centimeters. I weigh about 7.5 stone, and I think Crater is more like, probably weighs as much as a mini car does. I think we said that at one point. So you think of a Mini Cooper, and then you think of Crater, and you get the idea.
Yeah, Justin Sysum, when we talked to him, was saying that after he threw him over the top rope, he just had to take a little rest. So
yeah, I mean, I think so. I think a big rest, I would say.
I would have just laid on the floor and been like, I'm done. I'm
flicking through my pictures now, and I've got one of me and Crater. And I mean, I'm smiling quite a lot sitting next to him, but it's a ridiculous picture. He's just ginormous. I'll have to send it over. I'll tweet it out.
So, talking about like the accelerated filming schedule of the episodes, what's it like just putting that much wrestling into your brain in such a short time? Because I know that my understanding is that the filming was over like 3 days or something to that effect. What's it like doing so much in like such a accelerated time frame?
Yeah, I think in total we were probably in the studios for about 5 days, but I think one of those was potentially a rehearsal day, and then we had 3, I think, main filming days, and then just kind of a day that we were checking out the studios, whatever. So I think in total it was about 5 days. I quite like working like that because you just get so involved and immersed in what you're doing, and you just kind of forget about anything else in the world. You're like, yep, I'm wrestling for this 5 days. Everything is just, wrestling. So for me to work like that, it's quite cool because you just get to know the stories, you can watch it all. It's an easier way. And like I said, you just become a wrestling nerd in 5 days. You know every single thing about WOS, and you almost, I guess the word to use is a bit smug as well, that you know all the, what's happening and the storylines and the outcome, and you're really excited for it to come out and for everyone else to see it. And when we obviously have a live audience, as we did then, you're just really nervous that they're going to leak out what happened. You're like, no, you can't tweet anything. We want to keep it all a secret until it goes out on TV. But no, it's a little bubble that we were in, I think, for those few days. We all stayed in the same hotel. We would travel together in the morning and stuff. So you become like a little family. It was lovely.
It's really interesting, watching it stateside. I had absolutely no idea that you had filmed the whole, 10 episodes until they were all out.
Oh wow! Yeah.
I know that NXT, they film like 3 episodes a night and then release it over like 3 weeks. And I assumed you guys had done something kind of like that. And the fact that I hadn't really seen any spoilers is kind of a testament to like the really good, like natured fans that were like, yeah, we want to keep this secret too.
It was great.
I imagine watching it on TV is a bit like me watching SmackDown with my wife after I've watched like a YouTube review video or something, though, where I'm like, yeah, I'm the smartest guy in the room today.
Yeah, exactly. I know. You know exactly. You're smug and you know what's coming on. But I think it was a good way to do it. And I don't know, if we got a series 2, if they'd do it the same. I think, especially for a first series, you want to just do it and you don't maybe have as much budget and you just kind of go, let's do it in 5 days and hope for the best. And hopefully our best was good enough and everyone enjoyed it. And I think they did. And we'll see what happens next. But it was really exciting to film it in such a short space of time. Like I said, it just made it a bit more of a family, and that you got to know everyone really quickly in such a short space of time. So it was good.
So speaking of what's next, we're all hoping that it gets picked up for a second series. If they do pick it up for a second series, would you be excited to come back again?
Yeah, 100% I'd do it again. It's just one of these shows that was so fun to work on. And it's a little bit different to, I guess, what I do usually. I do not serious sports, but I do just mainstream, like I would do football and I do motorbike racing and athletics, and it was just a slightly different angle for me to go and do, which was really refreshing, and I loved it, and I kind of want to be involved even more. So yeah, I would 100%, if a series 2 came back, hope that I'd be involved, and we'd see where it goes. But I was obviously involved in the pilot that went out back in 2016. I think I put a tweet out and said, between the first pilot, which we got invited to do, which went out on New Year's Eve of 2016, to when this one got filmed, it was something like 22 months, because we filmed it in the October or something of 2016, and then we didn't film this obviously until this year. So it was such a journey as well to be on between that time period and keep meeting up with the execs. And we had a launch with Impact Wrestling as well, which then didn't come of anything. And then finally, like a year and a half later, they suddenly said, about a week before, right, this is happening next week in Norwich. Actually, that's where I'm from originally. My family are from Norwich. Are you around? And I was like, yeah, 100%. So it was lovely to have it in my hometown as well, where I grew up. It was quite, something cool about that a big show was coming to where you grew up and you were involved in it. So absolutely, if Series 2 got commissioned, I would be there.
Well, that's awesome. I know that I personally am really looking forward to that. I mean, looking at just kind of the success that it's had and like the traction that it seems like it's gotten in the UK, it's hard for me to take that pulse because I'm not there. But I know over here it's slowly like actually gaining a pretty decent fan base in the United States too. So here's hoping for a second series, and here's hoping that you get that Crater interview someday.
Well, I'm going to send you the link to that, because you can have a little laugh at it if you haven't already seen it.
That's awesome. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Is there, any way that people can keep track of, what you're up to, in the quote unquote off season?
Oh yeah, 100%. I'm obviously on Twitter and Instagram. I will tweet you guys, but if not, it's at Rach Stringer on Twitter, so you can follow me and see what I'm up to. Different sports, so if you are a fan of other sports, then you can follow what I'm doing. And I might post some sneaky pictures of Crater and myself, and he's not smiling in them, obviously, but I am.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate it, and hopefully we see you on the second season.
Thank you very much for having me on, and good luck for the podcast.
shows the experience of Justin Sysum. Oh, to be keeping a watchful eye on Rampage in the corner there. Also, we're keeping a watchful eye on CJ Banks, the man of 1,000 faces, outside the ring.
Yeah, he's an angry man, but in the ring right now we have a sadistic man in Charles Samuels. I love this kid.
Oh, look at that. Ducks a clothesline. That's Justin Sysum.
All right, everybody. She's done pretty much everything that you can think of. She's been a valet and a manager, an in-ring performer. She has been literally on every side of wrestling. I am super excited to be talking to the one, the only SoCal Val. Val, how are you doing today?
I am much better with that lovely intro. What an honor.
I just got a pop from my wife in the background.
Yay! That was amazing. Thank you so much.
I hadn't told her who I was talking to just now, so I got to start with probably the most basic question. How did you get started on this long, storied career in wrestling?
Well, I like answering this question because not everybody had the same story getting into it, but I think a lot of us start like this, which is I was a big fan of it. And, you know, a lot of girls nowadays, they either were fans or they weren't. You can't judge how somebody gets in it, but I think it meant more to me for what I've done because I was such a big fan. I started watching around 98, 99, and I was really drawn to the strong female characters like a Stephanie McMahon, that sort of type. More so the girls who didn't wrestle. I knew I never wanted to be a wrestler, but I just wanted to emulate those girls on TV. And I remember, trying to do photo shoots like the girls and the divas from the Postcard in the Caribbean and all that. And yeah, I wanted to be one of those girls. And I just, worked as many shows as I could, smaller and smaller ones, when I was younger. And then I just kept kind of climbing the ladder, and it got me to here.
That is awesome. So, you've done it all. You have been in ring, out of ring, ring announcer, and now you're a commentator for what is quickly becoming one of my favorite promotions. What's it like?
Yay.
What's it like sitting in the commentator's chair for World of Sport?
Oh man, first of all, it's so much fun. With Alex and I can say that it's a giggle fest. We just crack up all the time. Now, Stu, on the other hand, he's not exactly Mr. Chuckles. He takes things a little more seriously, as you know. He has a much more prominent role within the company because he's our WOS executive. So, taking it more seriously, and that's just his personality. But it's still a lot of fun to work with them. It was an honor to work with them too because I knew both of them before. I knew of their work before, and I thought, wow, how am I going to hold my own with these guys? But I had to really, really think about what my career has been thus far. And if you think about it, even though I wasn't in a commentary booth, my whole career has been, having to hold my own in sort of a male-dominated industry. So I thought, you've come this far, you've got this. And, with compliments to WOS, I found that the more I was myself and the more I was my silly Val, silly, witty things to say, that is so me. And the more I was myself, the more they liked it. So I think that's a compliment to them. They let me be myself for sure.
So you had a really compact filming schedule. You did the whole season in like these 3 days. What was it like being kind of part of that? I mean, almost like a boot camp of like British wrestling. I mean, what was that experience like?
I felt a lot more prepared because I've been doing shows here for, I want to say maybe 6 years before I started with WOS, off and on. And I've been living here for about 2 years before I started WOS. And then I was visiting. My sister lives in London. So I've been visiting and doing shows while I was visiting for years and years. And luckily, I knew about 98%, no, I think actually 100% of the roster, really. So I'd already kind of known most of the people that were there. And then I remember when they were kind of shooting us the roster and saying, okay, we've got this person, we've got that person. I remember saying to one of our producers, Simon, who is so amazing, I was like, I really want us to get Grado, and I really want us to get British Bulldog and Joe Hendry. And those were three that signed on. And I thought, okay, we've got ourselves a little program now. So they picked some of my favorites, and I was thrilled to hear who signed on. And I thought we had such a strong roster. And, for me to have known everybody beforehand, I thought was really, really nice, because if I just came in not knowing what was going on and I wasn't used to British wrestling, I think it would have been a lot more difficult to understand what was happening.
So that was kind of the boat that I was in. Like aside from I've watched some Progress, I've watched some Rev Pro, but not a ton of it. And so the first episode of WOS, I had heard about it on Wrestle Talk, and, their interviews on Wrestle Talk were hilarious. So I was like, oh, okay, I want to watch this show. So I found the show, and that first episode when Grado comes out and is so over with the crowd, I was like, why does everybody love this big dork? Like, what is going on right now?
Yeah, who is this guy? Yeah.
So when you approach an American fan, how do you explain British wrestling?
Well, this is how I explain WOS. First of all, I always say to them, listen, we're not trying to be competition for WWE. We're not trying to be this edgy, aren't we so cool? Look how cool we are. Please like this kind of a situation. We're somebody that, we go back to the basics when it comes to wrestling, and it's good versus evil. It's the storylines, it's theatrics, it's pomp and circumstance. It's really all of the reasons that I loved wrestling in the first place. It's escapism, it's just something you can watch and have a laugh at, but then, root for your guy and boo the baddie. So for that reason, I was so happy that it was a little bit more simplified. It wasn't so, so edgy. That's not really me. And I'm really not a fan of like hardcore and like violence and things like that, gratuitous violence. Just violence for the sake of violence is not for me. So I thought it was really up my alley for that reason. Up my street, I should say, over here. I always say my alley. Maybe that's a Southern thing. But then, to tell a wrestling fan about British wrestling, there is a little bit more of a serious feel to it, especially, when they call it the Graps and they're talking about mat wrestling and things like that. There's a couple other things that I'm sure you noticed being an American watching British wrestling, like the one fall chant, and just there's some other little funny quips in there. But I think it's cool to sort of have knowledge of both, and to have been in the American wrestling scene for so long and then now come to the British scene. It's fun to kind of, judge the two respectfully.
When you're watching the product, obviously you have the best seat in the house. You're right there ringside, watching amazing people like Joe Hendry, Will Ospreay, like just these crazy high level wrestlers. What are some of your favorite moments from this first season?
Oh gosh, I have to go back to Grado again, because I love storylines and I love sort of having a little laugh. I loved Grado in the suit. That was one of my favorite things, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be tremendous. And I loved that it was, the whole story for that episode, especially because we have so many young fans, was that it's better to be yourself. He's not going to be bullied. That was the whole message, and it was so clear that I loved that. First of all, in terms of athleticism, the ladder match with Nathan Cruz and Adam Maxted, I thought that was just the pinnacle of an amazing feud coming to a head. I thought that was just something that, was really going to stick in people's minds, and it clearly did. That was something that I was really wanting to see how it translated on television, and I was so happy with it. And then, of course, Will Ospreay, that comes to mind, too, when you talk about high flyers and death-defying moves. He's just somebody who people don't even watch wrestling, and if they're passing the TV, they'll go, oh, my gosh, my aunt or my brother was watching, just for a second, and they said, who the heck is this? What is he doing? How is he doing that? He's so impressive that he really brings people together in wrestling, and that just, that's just kudos to him for being an amazing athlete. He's just incredible to watch in person, and on TV it translates so well.
So I have to ask, how satisfying was it to hit the buzzer over Stu during the buzzer battle?
I felt like it was like Christmas morning mixed with a birthday. It was just, it was the culmination. God bless you. And he's such a professional. Going, he's such a great guy. But all those things aside, I just had enough. I just thought, I've sat here, through all of these matches, and, we're going to let him have his, whatever he wants to say. And yeah, he's the WS executive. But I thought I just couldn't take it anymore. He has this thing out for Grado. I've said it many times on the show. Grado is just like nails on a chalkboard to him. And he was very clearly singling him out. So it was just, I couldn't help myself. It was exhilarating.
But to see him do the quote unquote code of honor with him at the end of that tag team match was awesome. Like, watching Grado and Bulldog win the tag team match, and the tag team titles, and then Stu giving him some respect, that was pretty cool.
Right. It was. And Stu, you can say whatever you want about him. He does have a really great eye for talent, and whether he agrees with Grado or certain wrestlers or not, he's going to give praise where praise is due and credit where credit's due. And I think that was a nice moment for Stu. He might have even kind of smiled a little bit. I heard he's allergic to smiling, but I think I saw a little hint of one.
I don't know. Maybe it was a sneer.
Or a spasm of some sort of mouth spasm. Yeah. That's what he'd probably say.
He's having a seizure of some sort.
Yeah, mouth seizure.
So when you're looking forward to the future, it seems like WOS is doing really, really well. They're going on tour. Everybody's on pins and needles to hear about a second season. You know, I've heard good rumors in that, venue. You know, are you excited to keep working, with WOS?
Oh, absolutely. I think that we need to keep this momentum going. And, we're all over here, just waiting for an announcement on season 2. But the great thing is, to whet our appetite in between then and now and season 2 is the WS tour. Because again, like I was saying, to see Will Ospreay and people like that who are also on the tour in person and on TV, they're both equally as dazzling and stunning. So the fact that our fans can now, before hopefully season 2, they can see all of the superstars live and in person. I mean, that to me is something that will really start the new year off in a great way. I was saying that to one of our producers. I thought, wow, every new year you think, hey, what's going to be next? And I think, what is the most amazing thing we could do in the new year? And started off with reintroducing WOS Wrestling to all of our fans live and in person.
I might have to swim across the Atlantic to catch one of those live shows.
Please do. Yeah. We'll give you one of those. We'll make a little throne for you.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Well, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you got a bunch of stuff going on today. So I'll wrap it up. Is there any place specific that our listeners can find you online to keep track of what you're doing with WOS or anything else?
Definitely. We use Twitter, I think, more than anything else. So it's at WOS Wrestling on Twitter. With me, it's at SoCal Valerie. And then Instagram, I also use quite a bit, and that's official SoCal Val. But the great thing about social media nowadays is, you can be the first to know what we're doing, when we're doing it. And I love engaging with my fans on all of social media. So I hope they'll enjoy this. And I want to say thank you to you guys. I've seen all of your tweets and all of your promotion. And I think that's so, so great of you guys because we really do appreciate the support and the feedback. You guys have been absolutely stellar. So thank you.
I absolutely want, my co-host Carlo, he's in the UK. He's super excited for the tour. I am this lone guy in the United States flogging WOS to anybody that'll listen to me. I'm like, if you love old style, 80s and 90s style wrestling, this is right up your alley. I'm talking to you, Jim Cornette. You got to watch this stuff.
Yeah, Meltzer. We're going to need to get everybody in here. And the cool thing is, honestly, it's a cool marriage between kind of the old school and we've got the new school with some of the newer guys, too. And then we've got some wonderful females as well. So, honestly, I always say it in interviews, and it sounds a little passe, but let me tell you, there is something for everyone with WS Wrestling. And I think if they gave it a try, and hopefully the US fans will love it as well. I met a fan recently from Belgium that was watching it. I met at Wrestling MediaCon. He said, I love it. I said, well, how are you watching it? And he goes, oh, Google. So I don't know how he found it. But there are people that are now catching on to the phenomenon that is WOS for sure.
Wrestling finds a way, to paraphrase Jeff Goldblum.
Did you just use a Goldblum reference? That is tremendous. Hashtag wrestling finds a way. There's our hashtag.
That's awesome. Well, Val, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. I'm super excited to hear about the second season of WOS. Good luck to you on the tour. And yeah, I'm excited. You guys excite me.
And he's taken into the ring, and this is just dangerous. And I apologise at home if you're watching this with the same level of concern as I have right now for Justin Sysum, because this is there is no official. This is martial law, is what it is in a WOS ring.
Rampage just daring Justin Sysum to
get our second ref. Thank the heavens for that one.
Justice prevails. Justice prevails.
And a roll-up. We're going to get a new champion. 1, 2, new champion.
So close.
Title still in there, was about to be used.
Oh my heart,
cheap shot, Justin Sysum.
Discus Larry.
Rampage just went into the exposed turnbuckles. Here goes Justin Sysum.
He's going to the top. Can he hit it? 450 splash. The referee is down. 2, 3, new champion. Justin Sysum. New champion.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner and the new WOS champion,
disagree with this statement. That was the most unbelievable match we have ever seen in WOS, and I defy you to find that kind of wrestling elsewhere. What a night for Justin Sysum.
Okay, everybody, I have got a giant treat for you. Today we are talking to the first ever buzzer battle winner on WOS, and of course, your new heavyweight champion, Justin Sysum. How are you doing this morning, man?
I'm doing great, Gabe. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate you guys, showing me off to the world, especially some of your fans in the USA who might not have heard of me yet.
Yeah, so this is one thing that's really neat. I listened to another podcast that's been reviewing WOS, so I proactively hunted it down. And then on top of it, I started doing this podcast with Carlo, who's in the UK. And so obviously he's going on and on about WOS. So I start keeping up with it, and I get to watch this incredible story that you guys tell over the entire first season that culminates in this amazing victory. So I got to back up a little bit, though. You have to tell me, when you won that buzzer battle in such stunning fashion by throwing Crater over the top rope, what does that feel like besides, I assume, heavy?
Yeah. I mean, if you see the moment he went over the ropes, I just fell over with exhaustion. I was done. So early on in that match, CJ and Shah basically just pinned me down and allowed, 36 stone is what they call him, which equates to in pounds is 504 pounds. So he's over 500. So I was pinned down and he squashed me. So I had to deal with that earlier on. So to rally, afterwards and slam him and then throw him over the ropes, I pretty much just threw my hands up in the air in celebration and then fell over. And then realized I probably should get up and celebrate with the fans. But yeah, I just needed a moment to myself on my back there to catch my breath. But it was a great feeling, and I knew then that I got the shot to go after Rampage. That was what that was really all about. The whole season had been building to me getting another shot, because I did have my shot. And CJ and Shah again got involved and kept me out of the ring for a count out. So finally, the shot at Rampage, and I'd scouted those guys, so it was about to go down.
So you knew you were coming into something super special when you won that crazy match, which incidentally, the stipulations for that match were just so a combination of hilarious, confusing, and amazing. So, but
yeah, we thought the same. Backstage when we were being told the stipulations, when we were getting told the rules, everyone was just kind of giving each other those looks like this could either be an absolute mess or one of the most fun things we've ever done. And it turned out to be one of the most fun things ever. And the reactions we got, the feedback we got was pretty much all positive, because it's so hard to come up with a new concept in wrestling. And I know we borrowed a few different concepts to throw that whole match together. Like a Survivor Series tag followed by a Battle Royal or a Royal Rumble style match. But I think it worked out, and that just added to getting the victory at the end. Because it was a successful match was even better.
Watching it definitely was one of those things where at first it seemed just so nutty, but as it kept going, the match just built and built and built, and was so much fun to watch that after a while it just didn't matter how crazy it was. But when you did get the victory and you're going on to fight Rampage, you had talked about having Shawn Banks in his corner. How do you prepare mentally to effectively wrestle three guys?
Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. You can kind of scout them. I just, as much as I'd like it to be a one-on-one, I knew it would never be a one-on-one with those guys involved. Referee Steve Linsky did a great job at the start of the match throwing them out. But in the back of my mind, I knew that probably wasn't going to be the end of it. They're always going to find a way in. So, the very first thing that happened in the match was I got distracted, and I'm putting my hands up in inverted commas here because I knew it was coming. I stand there with my back to Rampage, and I knew he was going to jump me while those two distracted me, so I could quickly get the upper hand. Later on in the match, I mean, they did distract me, but I just managed to rally. I think I just prepared myself to fight all three of them, rather than just Rampage. So it was never a surprise, when they came out. Now, the surprises happened when I accidentally hit Steve Linsky with the splash. And thankfully, Tim, the other referee, came out to help me out there when Rampage had brought the championship belt into the match, to try and strike me with it. So yeah, I just had to get ready, and I really wasn't sure at the end of the day as well where Stu Bennett was gonna have his allegiances, because all season he'd been backing those guys and giving me a bit of a hard time with it. But as we all saw at the end there, I don't know. I think he might be coming round to the idea of me as champ, and also we saw he stood up and clapped Grado at the end of the tag match too, which was an interesting twist of events.
Do you think that Stu is going to eventually, with his history in professional wrestling, do you think he's going to eventually just inject himself into the championship scene?
You know what? I hope so. That would be, first of all, it would be great for our product. More people would tune in. So it's great for that. And also, to be the best, you have to beat the best. So if Stu comes knocking at the door for the championship, then hey, I'm gonna let him in, and we'll have a great scrap.
That would be a match I would definitely be watching.
Yeah, I would love that. I would welcome that with open arms. Yes, absolutely.
So WOS is doing a second season, and you guys are also going on tour. How does it feel like to know that the promotion is, overall been super successful, especially in the UK and hopefully expanding internationally?
Yeah, some people are very avidly following the ratings. And if you've been following the ratings, you'll notice we started really high, and then we had a bit of a drop off, and then we had some time slot changes too, which again affected the ratings of the show. And there are a lot of people thinking we're in big trouble, but what people haven't realized is that in television, the year-on-year ratings are what are really important because of things like Netflix and on-demand services. Less and less people are watching regular network television. And in the earlier time slots, we've been beating the year-on-year considerably. So ITV have looked at that and think, well, we've got a show here that will draw in fans no matter what time of day we put it on. And we'll consolidate, well over a million each week with the catch-up. So the show itself is very successful wherever they're going to stick it. And I'm really excited for the live tour because it means we get to now perform in front of fans who know us really well and know what the finishing moves are, know the stories between all of the competitors. And so I can't wait because for me, a relatively unknown wrestler up until this point, being thrown onto this big stage, now I get to feel what it's like to walk out in front of thousands of people that know who I am and know what I'm capable of. So I'm really excited. And of course, on to season 2 and things, it's just going to grow. It means our roster can expand. So obviously the fans who want to see some of the other UK talent that they know are really good, and we all know are really good, they're going to get an opportunity to show themselves on WOS. And, competition always breeds a better product. So, with all of the other promotions out there, WWE and some of the other independent promotions in the UK, I think everyone's going to benefit from WOS going on to have a second season.
So there on your televised events, the audience that's there, there's tons and tons of kids, which is really, really cool to see because that's definitely not something that you see very often, especially on Raw or SmackDown or anything like that. But I have to know, with all of the kids there, when you walk by in your cape, does anybody ever yell at you, "No capes," like in The Incredibles?
Yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, I love it. I think it's hilarious. Yeah, they do. And that's our target market at the moment, is the kids. It's what I guess sets us apart a little bit from some of the other on-demand services and the other networks. But yeah, no, that's my target market. I struggle sometimes in front of some of the more independent crowds because they see me and it's like the Roman Reigns scenario where they feel like I'm being forced upon them you must cheer this guy. He's our big hero. But the kids just see a guy in a cape running around and flying through the air and fighting the bad guys. And so the kids don't think twice. They love it. They love the character. So I've just got to work on, marketing myself to some of the more 18 to 30-year-old fans. And if WOS continues over many series, you never know where the product will develop and whether or not we end up with some pay-per-views and things like that where we can maybe turn the dial up a little bit for that kind of fan.
So speaking of indie wrestling, what's weird is here WOS would be considered indie wrestling because it's not WWE, so everything else is indie wrestling. But so the more independent wrestling promotions in the United Kingdom, like Progress or like Rev Pro, is there, what would be like the dream matchup for you? Like, who would you love to wrestle?
Oh, that's a tough question. There's so much going on. That's it. I'm just trying to think now. I don't want to sort of put myself in hot water by being, naming a WWE guy or something like that. I don't know. There's just so much talent going on. Let's stick with what we said earlier and have Stu Bennett. Obviously, the platform of WOS would be where that would happen at the moment. But I'd love to get Stu back in the ring. Right now, he's off doing movies and all sorts. So it would be. I think the more successful we are, the more likely it's going to lure him back into the ring. Let's go with Stu Bennett at the moment on WOS because that's a product very proud of, and I think it's something I would be very proud to continue to grow, rather than go off and get signed by the WWE and just fit into a formula that's already there. I'd rather be part of something that we can build in the UK and make a rival to WWE within the UK, and you never know around the world. And hopefully, the fans in the US get to see some of it on one of your networks if they decide to buy the product, I suppose.
It's interesting because a big draw for a lot of wrestling fans in the United States, if they end up, like Jim Cornette would say, like smart fans, fans that know about the business and follow, the ins and outs of it. A big draw for something like WOS is that it's just so different than WWE. It harkens back to a different time in professional wrestling. Like it reminds me a lot more of, the style that was happening in like the 80s and 90s where the good guys are good guys and the bad guys are bad guys. And, and they look the part and they play the part. And it's refreshing a lot of the time, and I don't feel like you have that Roman Reigns syndrome within the WOS because the progression of how, that happened over the season is so different than force-fed, this is your hero. It's very naturally done. I really enjoyed it. I loved the whole season. So. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you and Carlo are both, big wrestling fans. And so hear it from your perspective as smart guys who know the product and know the ins and outs of wrestling. It's really encouraging to hear. And we actually, with WS, we had the opportunity, because it's going on daytime television in the UK, people are going to see it that aren't out. They don't seek out wrestling, is what I mean. They might not be wrestling fans. So we had a real easy task, I would say, of introducing wrestling to these people. So we almost, it's Hogan versus Andre with the Slam me versus Crater. It's like we can have history repeat itself a little bit because some of those fans would never have seen that. So it's like a new era for them. So it was nice. We got to reintroduce wrestling to an audience, or introduce wrestling to an audience that hadn't seen it before. And we don't need to be too convoluted. The storylines don't need to be too complicated because of that. And then as we keep those fans on board and go into the future, then the booking can get a little different. And the buzzer batter can get crazy. I'd love to see Stu smack that buzzer like 5 times in a row and we have 10 people rush out all in one go and start scrap on the outside. There's so much potential for that match, I think.
Or just hit the buzzer and tear off his shirt from the announcer's table.
Exactly. Can you imagine in like 5 years' time when some of the guys left and gone elsewhere and then all of a sudden they're back for, it's like the Royal Rumble. Some of those faces that turn up each year and the pops that you get from the crowd for that, the Stu Bennett pop would be incredible.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And I'd love to hear him just say on the mic, I'm afraid I've got some good news, and just rip his shirt off and ready. It'd be incredible.
Oh man, your impression of Stu is so much better than mine.
It's just because I've got the accent.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Well, Justin, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to see what happens with season 2 and like just how your title reign progresses. Watch out for turbine engines with your cape. I think you'll be fine though. And yeah, I hope you have a long and marvelous reign.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate you guys having me on. You know, thank you for putting WOS at the forefront of the podcast for a little bit. We really need it. And yeah, on behalf of everybody at WOS, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, man. Thank you.
You've seen the show. Soon you can see WOS Wrestling live on tour.
All right, guys, thank you very much for joining us on this very special episode dedicated entirely to the first series of WOS. We want to thank all of the guys that have been on our show today, SoCal Val, Rachel Stinger, Phil Seymour, and of course the WOS World Champion, Justin Sysum. Again, thank you so much for being on the show. We have one last very special treat for you guys, an interview with Crater. He doesn't do any media, but we were allowed to ask him one question. So Crater, could you tell us what was it like being part of Series 1 of the new WOS Wrestling? With that bombshell of an interview, we are going to wrap up this coverage of WOS Wrestling, episode 3 of A Month of Mondays. Of course, be sure to check us out on all of the social medias. You can go to our website, barrenspace.com/momwrestlingpod. You can visit us on Twitter, which is probably the easiest way to get access to us, at Mondays Podcast. And of course, you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/momwrestlingpod. If you are a professional wrestler or you're involved with, anything having to do with wrestling, please hit us up at our email. That's momwrestlingpod@gmail.com. And of course, we would love to get your fan interaction. You got pictures of you with your favorite wrestling star. You got pictures of you in your favorite wrestling shirt. We love throwing those up on our fan page. So be sure to check us out. For Carl Eggett, I'm Gabe Giannis. This has been episode 3 of A Month of Mondays. We will see you in 1 month.
expressed by Carl and Gabe are entirely their own and do not represent any other entity. Thank you for listening, and remember to hit that subscribe button now. And don't forget to drop a review and star rating wherever you listen to the show. You've been listening to A Month of Mondays, the monthly wrestling podcast, a Barren Space production.